Tyler Reddick responded, not celebrated, responded, because winning Daytona did not just put 23XI Racing in victory lane, it put them under pressure nobody in that organization saw coming this fast. And what Reddick said after that win is either the most confident thing a driver has said all season or the most complicated. Tyler Reddick won Daytona, and the first thing he did after climbing out of that car was not what you expected. There was no jumping, no fist pumping toward the sky. He stood there for a moment, helmet still in his hand, eyes scanning the infield like a man who had just realized that winning was the easy part. What comes next is what he was already thinking about. You could see it on his face before the crew even reached him. And then he spoke, and what he said after that Daytona victory is the reason we are having this conversation right now. Reddick looked into that camera and said that 23XI Racing is ready. Ready for the pressure, ready for the championship conversation, ready for everything that comes with being a team that just won the biggest race on the NASCAR calendar. Direct, calm, no hedging. The kind of statement that sounds like confidence when things are going well and sounds like a target when they are not. Here is the thing about winning Daytona. It is the greatest single race achievement in this sport. Every driver wants it. Every team chases it. But winning Daytona in the early part of a season does something to an organization that not everyone talks about openly. It raises the floor of expectation inside that garage overnight. What was once a hopeful season becomes a championship or bust conversation before February is even finished. And 23XI Racing, a team that is still writing its own history, still proving what it is capable of at the highest level, just had that conversation dropped on them whether they were ready for it or not. Think about where this team was 12 months ago, fighting for legitimacy, fighting for resources, fighting for the kind of respect that only comes when you start winning races that matter. And now they have won the race that matters most. So the question is not whether 23XI can celebrate. The question is whether they can carry what that win means across the next 30-something races. And Tyler Reddick, if you have watched him closely this season, if you have listened to his radio calls and watched the way he carries himself in that garage, he is not a guy who shrinks from big moments. He is fast. He is focused. He has the kind of quiet intensity that crew chiefs love because it means the driver is always thinking, always processing, always looking for the next tenth of a second. That Daytona win was not luck. It was not a drafting gift. It was a driver and a team executing when the race was on the line. But executing at Daytona and sustaining that level across a full Cup season are two different animals entirely. And the people inside 23XI Racing know that better than anyone right now. You could feel it in the garage after the win. The celebration was real, do not get me wrong. When that car rolled into victory lane and the 23XI crew spilled over the wall, the emotion in that place was genuine. These are people who have worked incredibly hard to build something from the ground up, and that win meant every Daytona was not just a quote for the broadcast. It was a declaration. And declarations in NASCAR have a way of following a driver and a team into every single race that comes after. And there is a second layer to this story, one that has nothing to do with Reddick himself, one that lives inside the structure of 23XI Racing as an organization. And once you see it, the championship pressure suddenly feels a lot more complicated than a feel-good Daytona story. That is coming, but first, let me show you exactly what Reddick is now walking into. Let me take you inside what 23XI Racing actually is right now, because the broadcast version of this team, the Michael Jordan ownership story, the cultural moment, the feel-good narrative, that version is real. But it is not the whole picture. And if you want to understand why that Daytona win created pressure instead of just relief, you have to look at what this organization is still building underneath all of it. 23XI Racing is young, not young like an expansion team that does not know what it is doing, young like a team that knows exactly where it wants to go, but has not yet proven it can sustain the pace it takes to get there across a full 36-race season. There is a difference, and that difference matters enormously when you are suddenly being talked about as a championship contender in February. The team has shown speed, real speed, Not just Daytona speed, superspeedway drafting speed that can make anyone look fast. Track-to-track speed, the kind that shows up on intermediate tracks and road courses and short tracks where you cannot hide behind horsepower and aerodynamics. Reddick has delivered that. He has put that car in positions that prove this is not a one-dimensional operation. But here is what the speed has not yet answered. Can 23xi manage a championship run the way the elite organizations do? Can they make the right pit call on lap 280 when the race is on the line and the pressure is suffocating? Can they keep the car consistent through the inevitable rough stretches that every team hits between February and November? Those questions do not get answered at Daytona. They get answered in the grind. In the weeks where nothing goes right and you have to find points anyway. And Tyler Reddick knows this. You can hear it in the way he talks about the season when he is not in front of a camera, measured, careful, like a man who respects what he is up against. That is not fear. That is exactly if the foundation underneath it is not strong enough to hold the weight. So what is that foundation at 23xi right now? That is the real question. The organization has been expanding, adding cars, adding personnel, building the kind of depth that championship teams require. And that growth has been genuine. You can see it in how the cars are prepared, how the pit crews perform, how the strategy calls have matured over the last year and a half. This is not a team pretending to be ready. This is a team that is genuinely in the process of becoming what it wants to be. But process and arrival are two different things. And Daytona just told the entire NASCAR world, told the other teams, told the sponsors, told the broadcast, told the fans that 23xi Racing has arrived. Whether the organization feels completely ready for that label or not, it is theirs now. That is what winning Daytona does. It removes the qualifier. You are no longer a promising team. You are a winning team, and winning teams get measured differently. But here is what nobody is talking about yet. The championship pressure on 23xi is not just coming from the outside. It is not just media expectations or fan excitement or the weight of a Daytona trophy sitting in the lobby. The pressure that actually changes how a team operates is the internal kind. The kind that lives in the conversations between crew chiefs and engineers at 7 in the morning when nobody else is around. The kind that shows up when a driver walks into the hauler after a top 20 finish, and everyone in the room knows that used to feel okay, and now it does not. That internal pressure is what separates the teams that make a deep playoff run from the teams that win early and fade when the calendar gets hard. And right now, 23xi Racing is about to find out which kind of team they are, not in a negative way, in the most important way possible, because you only find out what you are made of when the stakes are real. And here is the hot take that I do not think enough people are saying clearly. Tyler Reddick responding with confidence after Daytona was the right move publicly. 100%. You do not win that race and then stand at the podium talking about how hard the road ahead is. You claim the moment, you own it. But behind that confidence is a team that now has to prove week after week after week that Daytona was a preview and not a peak. That is the pressure nobody signed up for when the season started. And it is sitting squarely on 23xi Racing's shoulders right now, whether they asked for it or not. So the question that should be keeping everyone in that organization up at night is not whether they can win again. They have already proven they can win. The question is whether they can win consistently enough and smart enough and late enough in the season when the playoff field tightens and every single point feels like it costs 10 times what it did in February. Because that is a completely different race, and it starts right now. Part 3. Step all the way back, further than Daytona, further than this season, because what you are really watching with 23xi Racing right now is something that only happens a handful of times in a generation of this sport. You are watching a team find out, in real time, under real pressure, with real championship stakes, exactly what it is made of. That does not happen on a Tuesday in the shop. It does not happen in a press conference or a sponsor meeting or a preseason test session. It happens in the races that come after the big win, the ones where nobody is watching as closely, the ones where the cameras have moved on to the next story, but the pressure has not gone anywhere. Those are the races that write the real history of a team. And 23xi Racing is right in the middle of that moment right now. Think about what the playoff picture looks like with a Daytona win already locked in. On paper, it is a gift. You have insurance. You have a guaranteed postseason berth sitting in your back pocket before most teams have even found their rhythm for the year. That is real. That is valuable. Any crew chief in the garage will tell you that racing with a playoff spot already secured changes how you approach certain races. It gives you freedom to be aggressive. Freedom to take risks that locked-out teams simply cannot afford. But freedom is only useful if you know what to do with it. And that is where the Tyler Reddick story gets genuinely fascinating to watch unfold. Because Reddick is not a driver who needs permission to be aggressive. He already races that way. So the question becomes, does the security of a locked playoff spot allow 23XI to focus everything on building championship-level consistency? Or does it create a subtle comfort that bleeds into the kind of complacency that derails promising seasons before anyone realizes what happened? History in this sport has examples of both. Teams that used an early win as a launching pad and teams that used it as a resting place. The difference between those two outcomes almost always comes down to leadership, what the crew chief demands, what the owner expects, what the driver holds himself to when the results are decent but not great and nobody outside the garage is raising any alarms yet. Michael Jordan is not a man with a complicated relationship with winning. You do not build what he built by accepting good enough. And that ownership mentality, that absolute refusal to confuse progress with a rival, is either 23XI Racing's greatest competitive advantage right now or the source of an internal pressure that is harder to manage than anything the competition can throw at them on the track. And Tyler Reddick is standing right in the middle of all of it, publicly confident, internally focused, carrying a Daytona win and a championship expectation into a schedule that does not get easier. Every week from here is a statement. Every finish is a data point. Every decision made on pit road under pressure is a signal about whether this team is ready for what November looks like. Here is what I keep coming back to. Reddick said 23XI is ready. He said it clearly on camera after the biggest win of his career with that organization. And I believe he believes it. I do. But belief and proof are two different things. And the NASCAR season has a way of demanding proof in the moments when belief is hardest to hold on to. On a hot afternoon at a mile-and-a-half track where the car is tight and the pit strategy did not work and you are running 12th with 20 laps to go and the championship picture is tightening around you. That is when you find out if ready means what Reddick said it means. So here is the question I want you to sit with, and I mean this as genuinely as I can ask it. Is 23XI Racing actually built right now to sustain a championship run from February all the way through Homestead? Or did Daytona just put them in a position they are going to have to grow into on the fly, in public, with every team in the garage watching every single move they make? Because those are two very different situations, and the answer is not going to come from a press conference. It is going to come from the races, starting with the very next one. Drop your take in the comments. I read every single one, and this is exactly the kind of conversation this channel exists for. If you have been watching 23XI all season, you already have a feel for this. Trust what you are seeing. And if this is the kind of NASCAR coverage you have been looking for, honest, deep, no filler, then you are already where you belong. Hit that like button, leave your take below, and subscribe so you are here every time we go this deep on the stories that actually matter. This community shows up every week. Come be part of it.